In this section, we'll work on making the project base and attaching the project to that base. Now on the material and cutting guide, it says we need 2 pieces of 12 by 12 chipboard, and I have those 2 pieces here in front of me. Now I want to glue them up to have a double thickness, and when I do that, if this one is flexible in this direction, then I take the second one and make it a flexible 90 degrees, and that just gives extra stiffness to the base. So I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together and put them under some weights for a while, or overnight is even better, and until they're dry, and then I'll be back. Now once our double thickness of chipboard has dried thoroughly, we'll use some more of the finishing strips that have a 1/8 inch channel, just like we used on the shadow box. So these were cut 7/8 of an inch wide, scored at 3/8 in on each side, and then 1/4 inch score tape was put on each side. And I think you can see here that I've mitered the corners, but the little channel part has stayed straight, so that I can go ahead and finish off all 4 edges of my project base. So now I've finished all the edges of my project base, and on the side where I'm going to put my decorative paper, you can see I've liberally put some score tape down so that we'll get good coverage between our pattern paper and our board, so that when we glue the project on, it will be very well attached to the base. And then I've just found a piece of 12 by 12 paper in my stash that I thought would go well with the project, and that's what I'm going to use on the base here. And I just prepped the edges of it with score tape. And I have one continuous edge over here so that I can remove that backing first and get that aligned, then flip this up and put everything else down, and that way I'll get my paper nicely aligned on my base. So I'll go ahead and get that accomplished. Now we're ready to do a little dry fit and placement of the house on the base, and the key here is the front steps, and they go in here at an angle, and they need to be held back just a little bit from that edge to look nice. And then it's a matter of, for the rest of the house, to get these areas straight as you work around here and here. Now I'm about, on this side over here, about 1 5/8 inches, and on this front side about 1 3/4 inches. So once I get everything straight and squared, oh, and I should say that I put in, you may not here, you can see it, I put in my little 2-inch spacer block in here. I've taken out the shadow box for this part of it. So once I have everything exactly where I want it to be, I'll remove the little front staircase for now, get it out of the way, and then I'll just take some Post-its and kind of put them around to help me know where corners are, so that when I go to glue this on, you know, I'll have a real good idea of where I'm going. So just kind of like that, and I'll do that around the whole base. And then tip this up for a second. Obviously when we go to glue, we want to make sure not to put any glue inside of this area where the shadow box slips in and out. So I'll get my house positioned and then I'll be back. So I have my house all marked out with Post-its. I also wrote in this corner a tower just so I'll know where I'm going to put the tower down. And then I've removed dormers and anything that can fall out. And so I can be ready to put wet glue on the bottom of this and then carefully lower it down into position. Here's my house ready to glue, and now I'll just put it in position. And once you get it into position, just quickly check your measurements, make sure everything is straight, and then put some pressure on your glue, of course. And then once your house is attached to the project base, you can add some glue to the bottom of the front steps and put them in place, and then to the little back steps and put them in place as well. And leave your little 2-inch block in there until your glue is good and set up. Now I'm ready to work on the inside of my shadow box, and the first thing I did was to find all my little doodads and in some cases make them and decide what I was going to put in each one of these spaces. And then I looked through my scraps and chose papers to go behind them. And when I cut those papers, I looked at the size of the back in each one of the boxes, and I cut them 1/8 of an inch smaller in each direction, just so I would have a little bit of a black reveal behind there. And I don't have anything attached in at this point. So that's what I did to select the backs. Now for the sides and the bottoms, I have, for the sides, I had a whole sheet of this wood grain paper plus another strip left over, so I'm going to use that on all the sides here. And then for the bottoms in each box, I'm going to choose between one of these papers. And you can decide whatever you want based on what you have left over. You'll need to still reserve a piece of paper. I'm going to, at least for the back of the box and the top and the side over here. So just think about that when you're choosing the papers to go inside here. And then I'll probably use a combination of score tape and just regular two-sided adhesive and maybe a little wet glue just to get the papers all in. And when I do the sides and the bottoms, I'm again going to cut them 1/8 of an inch smaller than what it says in this guide, and so I'll have a little bit of a black reveal in the front and in the back. And of course I'll ink all my edges. So I'll get all my papers in and then I'll be back. I've installed all the papers on the back and the sides and all but this one on the bottom, and I've also put paper on the top, and this side I have not yet put the paper on the back. And the reason I haven't put the paper on the back, or this little one, is in this one I think I'm going to have a screw eye that's going to come up in here that I want to trim off before I put this paper in. And here, and I'm not quite sure, but I think here I might have a couple of brads coming through, so I want to do anything that's going to be attached to the back and come through the back, do those before I put on my back paper. I also did use my ATG for the backs and the sides. Any kind of a thing that isn't quite as strong as score tape I think will work better, because it gives you a little chance to reposition for those. Now on all the bottom pieces I did use score tape because all of my little doodads are going to be attached to that, and I want to have a good strong adhesion between that bottom paper and the chipboard. So I'm going to go ahead and put those things that are coming through those two places, and then I can put my paper on the back, and then I can glue on all of my little Halloween things and let that thoroughly dry. So this is my decorated shadow box. I have it laying on its back here, so some things are not defying gravity. There's a little tag over here that hangs, and there's a spider up here that hangs from the ceiling. One thing I had to be careful of with this skeleton is that nothing protrudes in front of this box. So nothing is in front of the box here. And yeah, so then I have my top and my side and my back covered as well. So there's that unit ready to slip inside of the house. I just have a couple small finishing touches. First I have a little Halloween token that I put a brad in that I'm going to put right here on the roof. This is just optional, or you could use one of the mini plaquettes if you wanted to, or anything you'd like. So I'm just going to find the center and put some of that on with my diamond glaze or glossy accents. And then I have a tiny little black cat that I think I'll put somewhere. And then this is just one of the Tim Holtz pumpkins that I've kind of dirtied up so that it's not quite so bright orange. I don't want to have too many things on my project. That's how I prefer it. You can of course do anything that you want. Something else you might want to do for finishing is to cover up where we have the seams. We have one seam here on the side unit, and then on the tower piece we have two seams. Now I don't think they're too noticeable, so I'm decided not to put anything on them. You could cut a piece of black cardstock and put a smaller strip of decorative paper on it. This is sized to run at the same level as a second story porch, so you could have a continuation of that porch line kind of going on to these pieces. But if you did a pretty neat job, I don't, to me, yes, it's no, I can see it, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So that completes the construction of the Haunted Mansion project. This is April with Craft Knife Chronicles. I hope you've enjoyed the construction of this project, and thanks for watching.